Alabama falling to LSU 33-32. I'm going to say something here, and I've almost said it a few times, but I haven't. I've resisted. I'm not going to resist anymore. I don't really recognize Alabama right now. I think a lot of the fan base feels the same way. Everybody who's observed the program over the years feels the same way. I think the head coach there feels the same way. You may not believe that, but unlike you, he can't just bail in the middle of the year. Unlike you, he can't run to the nearest message board and fire half his staff in the middle of the year. It's coming. It's coming. A lot of changes are coming there. Bruce Hornsby, one of his best song titles that was an underappreciated song, is going to be some changes made. I think they will be. Let's paper pop that, actually. That's like our version of an amen from the third pew there. The SEC championship game kind of messed up my vision on this team. This program, really. The SEC championship game, I think, messed up a lot of our perspectives on this team, because if you remove nothing more than just that one four-quarter example in Atlanta last year, what do you have over the past 2 years? I was talking to Tim Watts on the way home last night, a guy that a lot of times I just use to stay awake when I have to drive, and he'll make you stay awake, I can promise you that. And I was asking him some questions, and he was asking me some questions. He said, think about these last 2 years. And I had to write it down because it's a long list. At Florida last year, they won by 2 points. At A&M, they lost by 3 points. The LSU game last year, LSU was awful last year. They beat them by 6 points. At Auburn, overtime, they won by 2 points. And then a title game, they lost by 2 touchdowns to Georgia. This year, Texas game, they won by 1. They win by 4 against A&M. They go to Tennessee and lose by 3. They lose yesterday by 1. That's not the profile of a dominant program. They're Alabama in name only right now. But my point in listing those games is not to pile on. My point is to reiterate, this is not a new thing. And I was talking to Watts, and he said, you know what's interesting is, have you had fun watching that team lately? And I thought to myself, I get what you're saying there. Like, if I'm a Bama fan and I'm looking at that team the past couple of years, it's one thing if you get beat. Like, I remember their teams in the mid-20 teens. That team that lost to Clemson in 2016, I will still maintain, is one of the best teams I've seen Nick Saban have. It's just that Deshaun Watson was that good. And Dabo put together an effort. His team put together an effort in the title game that was that good. But that team was a thrill to watch and to be around. I was covering them in local news down in Columbus at the time. Just an awesome collection of talent. Awesome collection of guys. That Alabama team would dog walk this Alabama team and then stand over them and dare them to get up and do anything because they had an identity about themselves this team doesn't have. Really, the last 2 years' teams, they just hadn't had that. And you can attribute a number of different things to be the reason for that. But there's just this little chalk outline on the ground right now where Bama used to be, because that right there, what we're watching, that's not, at least when they talk about the Bama standard, that's not the Bama standard. Bryce Young was not great in this game yesterday, but I'm not about to heap any blame at that dude's feet because he's been carrying that team all year. He is the reason they have a shot in these games. It's wild when you watch them and you look at how much of their offensive production comes on broken plays, meaning it has nothing to do with the play that was called. It's the athlete that's holding the football, and he's just better than everybody else. The offensive line was bad, I thought, in this game. Bryce ended up being 25 of 51. He was a 49% completion guy. That's the worst night of his career statistically. They've lost multiple games before the Iron Bowl now for the first time since 2010. So anyway, everybody watched the game. You've all got your takes on that. What's going to happen here? Obviously, they're not just going to continue on this trajectory. If they did that, Nick Saban might as well just walk away from the sport because he's certainly not one to sit around and tolerate that sort of thing. I can 100% guarantee you staff changes are coming here. 100%. They can't come before the end of the season. Anybody wanting heads to roll on Monday morning, that's not the way it works. Guys, you know that, but I can guarantee you moves are coming. Several moves are coming. There'll be a dump button hit on a lot of this Alabama staff. And the reason I know that, and the reason you can know it, is publicly available. I would suggest you go back and watch Nick Saban's post-game press conference last night because he did something that I thought was very telling. even after he talked about how poorly they played, he talked about how much this team is underachieved. Those are my words, I'm paraphrasing him. He made sure to mention that I appreciate the team playing hard. I like this team. And what he was doing, in my not so humble opinion, is he was telegraphing to everyone that they failed the team. His coaching staff, which starts with him, they have failed that locker room. And what I think he's sitting there honestly saying to folks is, look, the job we've done here, or the lack thereof, has put them in this position. He's done this a couple of times. He's made sure to defend the players, and he always does that, but there's a specific way he's done it this year that screams to me he thinks they've failed as a staff, and he doesn't want the blame to be placed on the players. And he'll take care of the staff once the season's over, but he's telling anyone who's listening and has been around him for a long time, it's on us. It's on me. Starts with me, and it's on us. They are doing what they can do based on the position we've put them in, is the way that I've taken these comments from Nick Saban post-game. So I know it rubs some of you the wrong way because he keeps on saying things and you just want him to drop the hammer on folks. That's never going to happen publicly. The only time he's that demonstrative is after they win, just like on the sideline. The only time you see him like that's when they're winning. When they're losing, it's all about we, and it starts with him. And he knows that, and I think there will be moves made. I don't expect either of their coordinators to be back next year. And what you learn, the more that you talk to coaches, and every week I'm in another town. So every week I'm talking to other coaching staffs. What you learn is how this sport really works. If you're a casual fan, I grew up as one. My view of the sport was you got the head coach, sometimes you know the names of the coordinators. If you're a really diehard fan, you know the names of all your position coaches. That's like the 3 or 4% of you, and I appreciate it. There is an army of people behind the scenes in this sport that play integral roles in whether your team wins or loses on Saturday, and you'll never know their names, and you'll never see them on TV, and you'll probably never even see their bio on the internet. But there is such a ripple effect that happens when one person moves. When a Kirby Smart, for example, goes from being your defensive coordinator to the head coach of another program. Sure, that's a big loss for you, but you know that. What you don't know is how important maybe, I'm speaking generically here, the 2 position coaches he takes and the 4 or 5 grad assistants that are under them that they take with them, and the 2 football operations guys and the 3 recruiting coordinators or assistants they take. These people are pivotal in your day-to-day operations, your strength and conditioning, your nutrition. You don't see these people. My point in going through that spider web of personnel is there's always shakeup with Alabama. They have massive amounts of turnover every year because the people they have are the most coveted people in all the land. You never know who they are, but it's blatantly obvious some combination of what Nick Saban had underneath him that's no longer there has disrupted what they are as a program. He hasn't forgotten how to coach football. 2 years ago, he had one of the greatest teams we've ever seen. What do you think? He got amnesia and forgot how to run a program? No. He doesn't have the same folks in the stable that he had there. He doesn't have the same players, but on paper, this is one of the most talented groups he's ever had. You will never convince me, oh, they just don't have the players. They don't have the horses. Yeah, they do. Yes, I can assure you they do. And so I think changes are coming there. And look, I think they'll come as soon as the season's over. I think that he'll probably get it right. And some of the dumbest talk I've heard over the past 24 hours is, well, this probably means his dynasty's over. Their season is over as it relates to their preseason goals. You have no earthly idea about the trajectory of a dynasty because a dynasty moves at the speed of like an iceberg. You have no clue because you can't see it move because it doesn't move very fast. And what it takes to build one doesn't happen overnight. And what it takes to tear one down doesn't happen overnight. The fact is, you heard a lot of people on TV today that were fighting for your clicks and your attention, that were talking about dynasty, that would have never had that word come out of their mouth today if Brian Kelly's 2-point conversion attempt failed. And the reality is, whether it succeeds or fails doesn't make that dude any different a head coach. It doesn't make Brian Kelly any different a head coach. But I know it's result-oriented. I know this is an outcomes-oriented business and world. I get all that. But it doesn't make the talk any less dumb when it happens. So Nick Saban has seen his team woefully underachieve. His organization is woefully underachieving right now. I think he'll get it right. I do not think he's close to walking away. I don't think his dynasty is close to collapsing. I do think there's significant work because here's the challenge for him. And I'd love to, if we got him on the show and we injected truth serum into his neck, I would love to know, when you assess your organization and you think you lack toughness, they're not as tough as Georgia right now. How do you decide the specific things or people who need to go and change, or the specific things or people who need to come in to change that aspect of your program? If you guys aren't good at tackling, you just incorporate new drills or maybe new methodology. But if you don't think your program's focus is where it needs to be, if you have problems chronically with penalties and you've done everything you know how to do, how do you know what to hit the dump button on and what to bring in? That is one of a few reasons why that guy gets paid a lot of money. It's going to be an interesting winter and spring period there in Tuscaloosa. Guys, thanks for watching Late Kick. Make sure and leave a comment. I love interacting with you. But most of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's how we keep all of this free.